All right. Hello and welcome. I am unannounced live again because I like doing that because I don't like being tied down. So, hi, everyone. I am here today with Betty McLean from Aim from Greatness Coaching. She's a life coach and an RN. And if you don't know who I am, you should be following me. I am Dr. Nicole Smith with Anti Gravity Wellness, specializing in perimenopause and menopausal women and all things health and wellness and nutrition. So, we were just riffing a little bit before we got on about diet and leaving things on your plate. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So I know diet and exercise are so important, but as I'm heading into perimenopause, which has been super fun,
Right.
um, I know that I have excess weight that I need to lose. And I've done diets before in the past and been really successful and then gained the weight back. And so for me, I know that I have some trauma in my past that has translated into how I relate to food. So, what I've been doing the last couple of months is I have been focusing on the areas where I know I have issues. So, one of the things that is in my head from, I mean, we'll call it generational trauma. It's I know it comes from how I was parented, but I have the hardest time stopping when I'm full and leaving food on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely raised, bless their hearts, it's not their fault, it's how they were raised. But I was raised by parents who said, you can't leave the table until you've eaten all your food, right? Because they came from a world where food was there, it was scarce, right? That's just one of the many issues that I have in relationship to food. So one of the things I've been practicing the last couple of months is taking my portion that I would normally take and eating it and leaving the last bite, which sounds easy peasy. Well, yeah, you just leave the last bite. You just stop eating when you're hungry or when you're full. But because I have a dysregulated relationship with food, an unhealthy relationship with food, it's actually very difficult. And so that's been just my little like exercise for myself and for my brain of just like eating. And then if I notice, okay, I actually am full, then I'll stop before the very last bite. But if I'm eating and I'm like wanting to finish the whole plate, I will just like force myself to be like, okay, that last little bite, I'm not going to eat it. Because if I do get hungry, I have no food scarcity in my life, right?
Yeah.
I can go get a snack later if I need it. So, like, if I'm eating a sandwich, I leave the last little bit of crust. Or if I'm eating like a bowl of pasta, like I'm not limiting anything right now. I'm just trying to leave the last bite, and it's good. It's been very challenging. It's getting easier though, just like with anything.
Yeah.
It's getting a little easier, but I have a lot of anxiety around thinking about diet, my nutrition, food. So I want to get to the point where I limit white pastas, white bread, breads in general. I tend not. I think like a lot of people who don't have healthy guts. I think you probably know more about this, but I feel like I don't do well with gluten, and I don't know whether that's because I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not any kind of. We can talk all day about the brain, but I don't know about my gut. But I don't know if it's just I have something wrong with my gut that I can't process wheat or gluten, or if it's just that I have not a great microbiome in there or whatever. So eventually I'll get to the point where I will limit that, but for now it's like one step at a time. Like, what can I do? So for the last couple months, I'm just gonna leave the last bite. And the other thing that I've been doing is I have a lot of like when I think about the next meal, or I worry about, okay, well, what am I going to eat for dinner? What am I going to eat for lunch? I've got to go out for an appointment. What am I going to eat? And so I have been noticing my anxiety and just reassuring myself, I will figure it out. I'm okay. And again, not necessarily like planning out my macros and doing all the things that I know are probably the best. My sister likes to say good, better, best. So I'm not doing necessarily the best thing for my health, but I'm doing the good,
Mhm.
and it will get better, and then it will be best eventually. So that's what I've been working on for my health lately, which it's been really good. It's been challenging because I know I want to just snap my fingers and be, 40 pounds lighter and running marathons, right? That's what I want.
You're awesome.
But I know that slow for me is going to be more sustainable in the end.
1,000%.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I am
Yeah.
in my journey at the moment.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And that's what I definitely talk about with my clients too is, where are you? Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
And then what is really attainable right now? Because when I lost my 45, 50 pounds and I kept it off, it took me 2 years and it was very slow. And I started with diet and just calories in, calories out. I didn't know anything about macros really.
Right.
Like and I was moving more. So it's just like the two things, just the basics and it worked at the time. And now things menopause, perimenopause, like things change.
Yeah.
We're talking about the sit, the sprint interval trainings and things like that. So we have to have different approaches and tactics, but it just, one little baby step at a time and building on that momentum that you get. And it's the sustainable way to go. It's not sexy or glorious because it doesn't happen fast.
Yeah.
But it works. It sticks. Yeah. And that's what we're really after.
Exactly. Well, and that's exactly what I want, because I think in my 20s, I didn't really, I had no understanding of myself. I was just figuring out how to live in my life. Right. And in my 30s, I was like, well, I'm going to fix everything. I'm going to like lose my weight and I'm going to learn to be a runner. And I love running, but like, so maybe for other people, it's something else. But like, for me, it was like, I'm going to do all these things and I'm going to do the fancy, I'm going to do keto diet and I'm going to be all, whatever. Right. But none of it, like you said, none of it was sustainable. I was more focused on like doing things that were trendy or fun or interesting, or what I consider interesting, I guess, at the time. And then as I'm 43 now, and I can feel my body wanting to shift. I can feel my body changing, and like I'm seeing changes in myself, and I'm like, okay. So rather than worrying about externally, like what's all the trendy thing right now? I don't even know. Like, what feels good in me?
Yes.
I know for me, because I've slowed down and paid attention. I think this is the hard part for a lot of women our age, is we're so, at least for me and a lot of my clients, we're so used to fast paced. We're like, go, we've got the career. I don't have kids personally, but we've got the kids. We've got the, let's go. And you hit your 40s, you've got kids who are going off to college. You've got kids who are their last years at high school, or maybe they're graduating college. And you're like living this fast lifestyle that you had in your 30s, but now your body's shifting. And for me, it's been a lot of like slowing down and feeling it, like really getting in my body and being like, well, how do I feel after I eat pasta? How do I feel in my body after I drink and then sleep for 6 hours and then have to function? Not great. Interesting. Rather than what I would do in my 30s is I would just ignore that and I would just push through. Right. So what I'm finding with my clients is like, they're feeling the same thing. They aren't slowing down and making that connection to, how am I feeling? Like, how is my body feeling? And what makes my body feel terrible? Like a bottle of wine and no sleep. And what makes my body feel amazing? Like a really yummy mocktail and 8 hours of sleep, right? So that's what I've been working on, both for myself and for my clients, is like trying to bring that mind-body connection back into it at a time when, not all my clients are perimenopause and menopause, but like really this is good for anyone. It's like, what is your body telling you? So we do a lot of that, is like how to feel that feeling and what feels good and what feels right. And how do you deal with the uncomfortable emotions? How do you deal with yourself when you feel awful? Like how, do you beat yourself up or do you give yourself grace? Do you give yourself
We're
grace?
working on that.
Yes.
By the way,
Yes.
Betty's my coach too.
We give ourselves grace. That's the answer.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it's harder. It's harder than it. I mean, it's harder to do than it is to say, for sure. But just like children and pets respond better to love and gentle, attention, our bodies respond better to love and gentle attention.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean give your body whatever it wants, right? It doesn't mean give your child whatever the child wants. It means give the body what it needs. Force yourself to go to bed on time, right? Force yourself to drink the water. Force yourself to take good care of yourself and go do the exercises that are going to feel amazing when you're done,
Yeah.
Because that kind of love and attention for your body translates into a calmer mind and a sense of care, like that you have been well cared for, and that's what our bodies need, especially when we're everything about our body is changing, so
absolutely.
That's what I do, a lot of that kind of work with my clients, of like just understanding what are the emotions and what's your body trying to tell you. So
I got a lot of questions when I was at that beach retreat last week, and the youngest gal was 30. Everybody else was perimenopause, menopause. So I got I did lots of curbside
coaching.
And
curbside medicine.
Yes. Yeah. And one of the questions that came up several times was, how much does mindset have to do with everything? So my favorite example is this study that they did where they took two groups of people, and the patients were blinded. The surgeons weren't, because you can't. But the patients were blinded, and what they did was an arthroscopic surgery for knee pain on one group, and then a mock surgery on the other group.
Okay.
And so they did the little
injection
incisions, and then they like put saline, so there was some localized swelling.
Yeah,
it was fascinating. This actually like changed insurance reimbursement, because the group that had the sham surgery had better pain relief than the ones who had the surgery, and long term did better as well. The ones who had the surgery ended up coming back to have like more surgery.
So what did they do with those saline surgery patients? Like, what did they have them? Did they have them do anything?
It's the same post-op procedure.
Same post-op procedure.
Yeah, same post-op recovery and all that kind of thing that they did. Yeah. Just the power of the mind.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's so I follow a lot of therapy podcasts and mindset coaches and that kind of stuff. And the stuff that they are finding that the brain is capable of doing with meditation and like energy work, and meditation is the big thing, is like, if you can shift your attention to off of your pain and your problems and all of those things, it's not that they go away. It's that you become stronger and more resilient, and they lessen and or go away, and you create a new reality for yourself. The power of the mind is just amazing. It really is. But it can start as simple as, like, here's a really personal but very real example. I had several meetings today, and I was trying to decide what to wear. I'm not especially happy with my body currently, right? So I was trying to decide what to wear, and I finally put this on. I'm like, just fine, let's go. But I slowed down, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I said, I have a strong body. This is a good body, and I look fine.
Yeah.
And you know what? I feel pretty good. I've been really good with my nutrition, and I've been really good with my drinking lots of water, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I went about my meetings, and I've had a beautiful day. Like, have I thought, oh yeah, I got that little, maybe a couple times, but mostly I've been able to focus on the people that I was meeting with, the appointments that I had, and not so worried about, oh, does this fit right? Does this, oh, I don't know if I look so fat, But I stopped And I took time to thank my body for being strong and healthy it is as it is. You know, it could be stronger, sure. And then tell myself, okay, we're okay. You know, slow down. You're fine.
Yeah.
You know, give myself that sense of security. And I think that made a huge difference this morning in how I showed up to my appointments, how I showed up to my meeting that I had to go to. And, you know, it's just taking your mind and not letting it fester, you know, and just directing it where, you know, where it needs to be, right? Because our minds are kind of like kids. Have I shared the example of the, well, I haven't with your people, so I'll share it. So I like to imagine thoughts we're ourself, we're a little canoe and we're floating on a little lake, right? And that's our self, me. I'm a little canoe and I'm in my little canoe and I'm floating around down a lazy river or a little lake. And there's leaves that are passing me, right? And the leaves are like the thoughts, because our thoughts are not our true self. It's just an electrical impulse in the brain that comes and goes. And it's our privilege to lean over the edge of the boat and pick one of those leaves up. And we can look at it and we can go, oh, this is a really pretty one. Maybe it's a big maple leaf, or it's a really pretty flower or something that floated past. And we're like, oh, I really like this one. I'm going to keep it with me here in the boat. I'm going to look at it the rest of my trip, right? Or we look over the side of the boat and we pick it up and it's actually a decaying leaf, or it's an ugly stick, right? We get to decide whether we keep that in the boat with us and we focus on it, or we toss it back. And our thoughts are the exact same way. It's not necessarily easy until you've practiced it, but it's very simple. If you have a thought in your brain that is not serving you, the thought, oh, my body is so ugly, does not help me get through the day. So why would I want to pull that into my little canoe and look at it all day long? Right? Toss it back. Find a different one. So I think that's super helpful, especially for the perimenopause crowd who, my body's doing some weird stuff, Nicole. Like weird stuff. And I'm like, this is not okay. I had a thought the other day. I'm like, my body's betraying me. Well, that's not a very empowering thought.
That's common though.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. My body's changing. My body's betraying me. I had that thought. And I could choose to keep thinking that. I could choose, because it feels that way. Every other month, my body is weird and betraying me. But I could instead focus on, this is crazy. I'm entering a new phase of life. I wonder what's going to happen this month, right? Or, well, if I don't understand it, at least I've got resources to figure it out, right? There's so many thoughts that I could choose to focus on. Is that thought, my body's betraying me, might come back around? Maybe. But I can choose to just toss it back in the river and let it go. So that's true whether you're perimenopause, whether you're a teenager, whether you're a grandma, like, you know, what we focus on creates our reality. And so if you're focused on, my body's betraying me, I'm ugly, I'm never going to lose this weight, like I'm never going to figure this out, well, that's kind of the reality you're going to create until you can learn to turn those down or toss it back in the river, you know, and find some new ones.
Two things that you talked about in there. So first, the body image. I also learned that a long time ago. You can't hate your way into a better body, because you're in the deep brain part. You know, your subconscious that tells you like where you are, and will always pull you back there. Like, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we sink to the level of our habits, right? So you hate yourself into a different looking body, you're going to default back. Like that's that. Like, it took me a really long time to not be the fat girl anymore.
Yes.
Really long time. And I have moments where I still will slip back. And this was, I was in, like my 20s.
Yeah.
And I'm 42 now.
Mhm.
Still
Yep.
having this issue,
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely learned that. And then
Yeah.
the other thing you were talking about with picking your thoughts. One thing that I talk to other people about, and and has helped me as well, is where are those thoughts coming from? Why, because they're serving a purpose, especially
Yeah.
if they keep coming up again and again. So
Mhm.
instead of like getting mad at it or like, why am I thinking this way? I'm not supposed to do, like,
Mhm.
where's it? Just get curious.
Yep.
Like, where is that coming from? How is it serving me?
Mhm.
How is that helping me? That's like bad habits too, like stress eating.
Mhm.
How is this helping me?
Mhm.
Why it's coming up to protect me? So
Yep.
like, thank you for your protection, but I don't need that. And then where is
Yeah.
that coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a lot of the last couple of months have been about, like I said, learning to leave food on the plate,
Yeah.
learning not to stress about upcoming meals. But I know that some of my weight and the way that I've interacted with food is from traumatic stuff in my past, right? And knowing that, what was really fascinating was I had lost like 45 pounds on a fancy trendy diet, and I was feeling really slim and looking good, and I had a little more attention than I wanted in one particular moment from a stranger. And from that moment on, I started gaining the weight. Now, I did not realize that until about a year later. I had gained all my weight back, and I was dealing with, I'm like, I have to figure out this past trauma. And I looked back, I'm like, oh, wait, I had a re-trauma, right? And my body was like, look, when you're at a lower weight, you're not safe. You get unwanted attention. Let me protect you. Let's put that weight back on, right? And the funny thing is, like, it's not that it's that weight doesn't actually protect me. Really, if you think about it, I could still be assaulted. I could still be, get unwanted attention. But subconsciously, my body has decided that it protects me that way. Yeah. And so a lot of the last couple of months have been going in and doing that exact work of, oh, I see you. You're scared little person, right? From the various times when I've been hurt, I'm like, okay, I see you. And I thank you. Right? Protector. You were trying to protect me. I get it. I get it. Thank you. Let's figure out now how you can take a sideline and just retire, and I can protect us now. Right? I'm going to protect us by getting really strong and getting really secure in who I am and secure in my current relationships. And I'm going to figure out how to protect us in healthy ways now. Thank you. Yes. Right? Yes. But it takes a lot of, and this is the work that I think we're moving towards maybe as a society, but it requires a lot of introspection. And it's hard work to do, even with a qualified therapist or coach. It's hard to sit there and go, all right, let me dive into my past and look through all my histories and then learn how to thank myself. And, how does that translate into my habits? And it's only hard in that it's very emotional. It tends to be very emotional, and emotions are hard. They're, they're hard to deal with, but the result of getting it taken care of is so liberating that it's worth the hard work. But I do encourage people to get a qualified therapist or coach, especially if you've had significant body boundary violations in your past. If you've had significant traumas and that kind of stuff, really working with a qualified therapist or coach, like, just to guide you through that process, because stuff will come up that will be uncomfortable and scary. And if you have somebody there, like, saying, yeah, this is normal, you're good. This is how you're going to walk yourself through that. It just makes it safer. But honestly, like, just journaling or sitting with your thoughts and just noticing them for 5 minutes, a couple times a week, that you can start there. Yeah. Like, and it just requires the discipline of, like, sitting down with yourself for 5 minutes and asking yourself, what are the little leaves that are floating by in my lake that is my brain? You know? Yeah, it requires that, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
I love journaling. I've
Mhm.
gotten back into that. I dive in and out.
Mhm.
And actually, one of the girls at the event, that was like her thing, was journaling, and especially women over the age of like 50.
Mhm.
She had this really great. It was so sweet. So her husband passed away,
Mhm.
but before he did, he was like stationed someplace, and they, instead of writing like letters, they literally had a journal. So she would have the journal, and then she would write in it, and then she'd mail it to him, and then he would write in it.
Oh
So
my
it's all in
goodness.
one book.
Oh my goodness.
What a gift. Like, so amazing. So, and now
Oh.
she's talking about using it when, as we get older, sometimes we
Yeah.
start to forget things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, well, I remembered that I forgot. So we're not there yet.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
At least I remember that I forgot. But
Yeah.
she's talking about how journaling can really help to actually hone in that mental clarity
Uh-huh.
and bring that back. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you've looked into that, like, because I've talked about, you write it down for manifestation.
Mhm.
I've done that. And then I look back
Mhm.
15 years later, I find a piece of paper. I'm like, holy crap, everything on there. And I didn't look at it since I
Yeah.
wrote it.
Mhm.
That all came true in one form or another. Like,
Yeah.
maybe not exactly how I planned it out,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's crazy. So
Yeah. Well, there's something, so everything is made up of energy, right? We are atoms held together with energy, and everything, it's matter and energy holding everything together.
Mhm.
And so when you think something, like, you literally, like, scientists are starting to study this. It's like when your thoughts are about something, you can literally change your energy field, right? And how your energy is feeling. When we speak or write, we're literally moving that energy out of us into the world. So when people talk about manifesting and like creating your reality, it's very woo-woo, you know, but there's scientific basis for it.
Yeah.
Because you're literally speaking or writing energy into the world.
Yeah.
And so it feels very weird as somebody who's very science-based.
Yeah.
It's very weird
Yeah.
to say it. But the more that they are creating sophisticated tools to scan the brain,
Mhm.
scan the body in real time, the more that they're seeing how literally writing something down can affect our energy and the energy of the things around us. And just like when you drop a pebble in a water, right, and those ripples expand out, everything we do interacts with the people close to us, and that interacts with the people close to them. And, you know, we're all connected, right? Whatever. But, and it feels weird to say that, but journaling creates something real in the world, that you energetically create something real. And then the other thing that I heard recently that I just love is, thoughts become untangled when they pass through lips or pencil tips.
Oh.
And I thought, well, isn't that brilliant? Because I don't know about you, but like for me, especially if I'm on a topic that's involved, like my weight or my health or whether or not I'm entering perimenopause or maybe I'm pregnant, who knows, right? Like, no, that was like seriously a couple of months ago, I was like, it's a bad word. What if I'm pregnant, right? Like that would not have been okay. But I'm like, you know, what do you do when you miss a period? Like, I've never missed a period before. I'm like, oh my God. But so I was in my head, like in my head, and just thoughts. Well, would I be okay? Would I be okay? What if my body's betraying me? What if well, maybe I have some sort of disease. Maybe I'm, you know, and I, you know, there's a part of me that's also going, you're just entering perimenopause. You're fine. This is normal. I'm like texting my older sisters, is this normal? You know, so our thoughts, at least for me, tend to be very convoluted. And I jump from one thought to another, to another, to another. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then what's my husband going to think? Oh my gosh. And then what, we're going to have to move. And then what if I have a disease? What if I have an illness, you know? Oh, I'm going to have to go to the doctor. Maybe I should make it a doctor's appointment. I haven't made a doctor's appointment this year. Oh, I probably should make a doctor's appointment. I should probably get my freaking annuals done. I haven't scheduled those either. Anyway, so
down the rabbit hole we go.
right? But that's what our brains do, at least
yeah.
most people, right?
Yeah.
So when we take those thoughts and we let them come out either through our lips, speaking to a therapist or a coach, or through our pencil tip, through our lips or pencil tips, onto a journal, it straightens everything out. And it may be, I mean, if you free journal, like it may look like a convoluted mess on the page, but then you can go back and go, oh, that really is what I'm thinking, isn't it? Interesting. And it doesn't get lost in all the connected thoughts. So all that to say, yeah, journaling is super important. Getting your thoughts just lined up, you know, like, is that really a thought you believe, or is it just one that you've been handed time after time after time? Is it your thought? Is it somebody else's? Get it written down. Tell your coach or tell your therapist, see if it resonates when you say it. Does it feel like something you believe, or is it something you've been handed, you know, from somebody else? So
many of us.
yeah. Well, especially as women, like I've started several conversations with my older sisters about perimenopause now that I'm entering it. Mom never had those conversations with us. And my older sisters didn't really with me. I mean, they mentioned a few things here and there. But until we feel free to express what we're going through, nothing's going to change. If we let it stay in our head, nothing's going to change for ourselves. Nothing's going to change for our sisters. Nothing's going to change for society. We have to start speaking it, writing it, like getting it out of the fog and into some clarity. So, and I think a good coach, a good therapist, or even just having a support group where you feel really supported and safe to talk about what you're experiencing is a good starting point for some people. Like, I think everybody should be in therapy at least once in their life. And I think everybody should hire a life coach at least once in their life. So I think that's a great way to go. But even just getting in, like, I know you have a Facebook group where just go on there, see what other people are experiencing, right? Like, just start talking about it, writing about it, because we get a lot of clarity when we speak what's going on.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, especially to other people, and you're like, yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah,
you are not. Alone. That was and can go back to last week, but just getting together with other women like that, like, you know, not only were we all kind of in the same age bracket, but also similar career paths as far as being entrepreneurs and learning that, you know, your struggles are my struggles are, and we all kind of feel that same way. We all kind of feel a little bit alone. And that's really applicable to perimenopause women, like, especially when you're going to your doctor with symptoms and they're like, oh, well, you're fine. Your labs look fine. And here's an antidepressant, which might be appropriate, but there's more that's going on there, you know? So we need to like dig in a little bit deeper and even acknowledge the fact that there is such a thing as perimenopause, because it's still not very well studied. And, you know, so that's part of why we're talking about it so much. So like, you know, and it is a generational thing too, you know? My mom didn't really talk about that kind of stuff, you know, even just going through puberty was horrific. And this is our second puberty, but we don't even know about it, you know? So it's, well, I love the journaling because that's accessible to anybody.
Absolutely.
So there was something else I was going to ask you, and now it kind of drifted off.
And for people who don't feel like they're journalers, or like to journal or whatever, I like to suggest just set a timer and ask yourself to journal for 3 minutes. Like, it doesn't need to be a lot in the beginning. I know I have clients who literally will journal for like half an hour. And I'm like, bless your heart. That is not me, right? I like to journal. Generally speaking, I will journal for 10 to 15 minutes and get a lot of good thoughts. I call it a thought download. Get a lot of good thoughts downloaded onto the paper. And then I like to go through and look at, what are my thoughts? What are my beliefs? And what am I feeling about those thoughts and beliefs? And kind of like sort through it a little bit. But if you're not a journaler, like set a timer and do it for 30 seconds, like write 5 sentences,
Yeah.
right? Just ask your brain to just for 5 minutes, write down what's going on in your brain. Just 5 minutes, right? And because it gives the brain an outlet to let some of those concerns, some of those tangles come across the pencil tip. So it really is accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do it right. There's no right or wrong way to do it. So for those perfectionists out there,
Yeah, that's key.
do not hear there's a right way or wrong way to do it.
No, there's so many
yeah.
different ways. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I like doing the prompts. I like
Yeah.
doing the write down your limiting beliefs or
Yes.
that negative belief
Yes.
and then cross it out and write down the truth.
Yes.
And that helps too, that whole process of, because you can think it in your head like that's not true, but your brain's like, well, yeah, but it's still here.
Right, yeah.
So you like cross it out and you write
Yeah.
down the contrary that's like, no, this is actually the truth. And your brain can see it on black and white. You're like, okay, that starts that process of rewiring.
Well, they've shown that, as because I've been listening to listening to the audiobook The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh yeah.
I'm halfway through. Not necessarily a read for everyone, because it is if you've been through a significant trauma, it might be hard to read. But so it's definitely like trigger warning. They talk about stuff in that book. But he's talking about how they've done studies, because they can do that now because we have really good imaging technology, that when you think about a memory, your body experiences it as if it's current. And when you worry about the future, the body experiences it as if it's current. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what you're just thinking about. So when you think to yourself, I'm ugly, I'm so ugly, you may then in your brain think, that's not true. I'm not ugly. My husband says I'm beautiful, right? You may acknowledge to yourself that it's not true, but it doesn't matter. Your brain doesn't have, if you've thought it, it's already created it. It's like, that's true. Oh, and now this is true. And now this is true. And those can all contradict each other. The brain doesn't care. You can go back and rewrite a story, something that happened in your past, and you can go back and change it. And your body's like, okay, cool. I believe that now, right? The brain doesn't care what's true or not. It just believes what's going on currently. So I love the idea of writing down what your thought is, what your brain's offering you, and then literally crossing it out and being like, brain,
not true.
This is what's true for us. This is what we're going to focus on, because it literally forces the brain to, again, take that jumbled thought and put it outside of itself.
And breaking that habit.
Yep.
Of like getting on that
Yeah.
hamster wheel.
Yes, yes, 100%.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So talk to us about burnout and because this is really perimenopause, menopause time frame. Whether you're a nurse or not, we're women, we take care of people. So what do we do when we're feeling so burnt out? And now we've got these issues going on with our own bodies. Our doctors are telling us that we're just stressed out, just like get more sleep or something. And you just feel so lost. Like, so how do you deal with that when you still have to be there for everyone else, but you're trying to take care of yourself and you're finding it really hard?
Yeah. So that's so true. Like, especially for women, most of us are conditioned from an early age that we need to be there for everybody else. Like, that's how I think I'm hoping that we're getting away from that a little bit, but it's how most of us in our perimenopause and menopause stages were conditioned. And it really does come down to, you have to care for yourself first. So it goes against how a lot of us feel. So especially as nurses and healthcare providers, like, not only are we implicitly taught our needs don't matter, we're explicitly taught by our managers, your needs don't matter. I don't care that you need to take a break. I've got patients that need to be admitted, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's the quintessential example of your needs don't matter, right? The problem is that is the recipe for burnout. That is the recipe for illness and caregivers who can't care anymore. So a lot of what I do with my clients who are nurses and experiencing burnout is asking them to slow down, like for half a second, and talk that through. Does it make sense to not take care of yourself when there are people in your life who are depending on you? If there are people in your life who are depending on you, your children, your spouse, your paycheck depends on you, right? Which means your work, you need to show up to work, right? You need to be well enough to show up to work. And then once you're at work, you've got if you're a hospital nurse, you've got very sick people, like literally life or death depending on you. How do you want to show up for the people in your life? Do you want to show up anxious, exhausted, dizzy, like hurting? Do you want to show up not well rested, not well cared for? Or do you want to take a few weeks, maybe more? Most of my clients have pretty good results after about 12 weeks. But do you want to take some time, recalibrate your brain and how you think about yourself and your worthiness and how you show up in the world, and then show up in a way where you feel empowered. You feel worthy of care. When your manager says, I need you to come back early from your break, you say, well, I'm not going to because I need 15 more minutes. I know that about myself. Sorry, this is legally, no, I'm not coming back unless someone's coding, right?
Yeah, there are exceptions.
There are exceptions. There are exceptions. The interesting thing about that is when you take excellent care of yourself, you have the energy to show up for those emergencies. You have the energy to pick up an extra shift because you want to, not because you feel guilted into it, right? So this is the problem with, especially in healthcare. And I have a couple clients who are teachers, and I'm seeing a lot of similarities, and I'm like, oh boy. I think teachers are kind of in the same situation, and probably most professions, to be perfectly honest. When you are being asked to show up for extra shifts and you're being asked to do more with less, you're asked to take on more responsibility. You're asked to do all of these things, but you don't have anything left in the tank. Either you're going to show up and not be your best, or you're going to push yourself to that breaking point and you're going to hit full burnout. And then you're going to literally be, people in burnout end up, if they don't take care of themselves in the early stages, they end up with autoimmune diseases. They end up with chronic fatigue. They end up bedbound because they can't function anymore. So when you're noticing, gosh, I have a lot of dread and anxiety when I'm going to work. Gosh, I am ending the day so exhausted that I can barely put food on the table for my family because I have zero energy. When you're finding yourself awake for hours and hours every night because your brain won't shut off, like that's your body saying there's something wrong. Pay attention. Pay attention to me. You're paying attention to everybody else. You need to pay attention to me, right? And as women, and in their 20s, maybe, although I know a lot of people in their 20s and 30s who have burnt out too. So this is not an age thing. But definitely by the time you hit perimenopause and your body's starting to change, you cannot push yourself anymore. You can't.
Yeah.
And your body will demand attention. What do they say? Like, if you don't rest, there's some kind of quippy saying about, if you don't take time for your wellness, your body will make time for illness. I don't remember the quip. Anyway, the point is, if you don't take care of yourself, your body will stop and force you to rest.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it whispers and then it yells and then it breaks you.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And so my goal with my coaching is like, at any stage in burnout, you can heal. Like you really can. You can be that final stage of burnout where you have autoimmune diseases and you have chronic fatigue and you maybe are on disability because you can't make it to work anymore. You can heal from that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take a few extra team members and it's going to take some specialized care, right? If you are in the early stages of burnout, you can bring yourself to a stage of wholeness and wellness by caring well for your body and taking care of your mind and taking care of yourself. Like you don't have to get all the way to the end of burnout, right? Where you have to have the doctors and the, all the things, right? But it takes listening. It takes listening. And I think that's the essence of self-care, is like listening to your body. Because sometimes self-care is you need a bubble bath and you need some chocolate and you need a good like chick flick, right? Sometimes that's what you need. Like your soul just needs that, right? But sometimes self-care means going out and taking that walk when you get home and you're tired, but you actually aren't tired. Your body isn't tired. Like your mind's tired and it's exhausted from being around people and you need to go for a walk.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And sometimes self-care is going to the gym and lifting the heavy weights, even though you don't want to, because muscle health, right?
Yes, it's also therapeutic to pick up and put down heavy things.
Heavy things. Right? So, I mean, self-care can look like a lot of different things. What it isn't is it's not draining. So I think there's a difference between self-care and self-indulgence. Okay.
That's a very key distinction.
Yeah. So sometimes a bubble bath and chocolates and watching a chick flick is nourishing. Like you just need like, I don't know if you've ever been at this point, but like sometimes you just need a good cry.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to watch this romantic comedy that I know just will have me bawling because I need that cathartic like release. Right.
Yeah.
And when you finish taking your bubble bath and watching your sappy romantic comedy or whatever, like doing whatever it is, you feel nourished and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go back to work tomorrow and I'm just going to be like, it's going to be great. Or I'm going to go to the gym first thing in the morning and I'm going to be okay. It's going to suck, but it's going to be great. I'm going to do it. That was self-care. On the other hand, if you are trying to escape your reality and you are taking your bubble bath and eating your chocolates and watching your romantic comedy because you can't deal with life, and you end up feeling sluggish and drained and
eat the whole chocolate box,
you drink the whole bottle of wine, and you end up thinking really awful things about yourself, and you end up not wanting to go to the gym tomorrow, and you get mad at your spouse because they don't understand and everything's terrible. That's self-indulgent behavior. That's not self-care. In that case, that bubble bath, those chocolates were not self-care, right? And it really does come back to, you need to listen to yourself. You need to learn to listen to yourself. That's what it comes down to. And if you can't listen to yourself, if you don't know how, that's when you hire a coach. Because that's the essence of coaching, is you talk and the coach goes, oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that true? Interesting. And honestly, half the time that I've worked with my coach, I've said something. As soon as I've said it, I'm like, oh, no, that's self-indulgent. Sorry. And they're like, okay, as long as you recognize it, but it took saying it to another person for me to notice it. Somebody, not just anybody. Somebody who's holding space and is neutral and not involved. Right. And you can complain to your girlfriends and you can vent at your spouse, but if they're really invested in the story, they won't necessarily hold that neutral space for you where you can really actually look at your brain and go, oh, I'm being really self-indulgent here. Oops. Okay. What do I need to do to actually nourish myself? What do I need to do actually to care for myself well?
Yes.
You asked me a question and I don't know if I answered it or not.
You did.
Okay.
You did. So going back to what you said about at any stage in burnout, you can heal. I love that so much. And I talk about that with my clients too, that, we're facilitators of healing,
Yeah.
but your body I don't
Yeah.
cure you of anything. Your body
Absolutely.
does it. We just make the
Absolutely.
space for it to heal itself.
Yep.
Through, nutrition and diet
Yep.
and exercise, and
Mhm.
sometimes we use some medications to help the
Mhm.
process along.
Absolutely.
But and this is, a different type of medicine. Obviously, it's not just Band-Aid medicine that you
Right.
typically see, which is why I got out of all of
Yeah. Yeah.
that. But I love that because that is really hard. And part of the reason why I can't stay in
Mhm.
hospital medicine,
Yeah.
where I
Yeah.
have that third fracture coming in,
Mhm.
and it really is too late for them. I'm not going to get them to get up and do sprint intervals. Like, this is not
Right.
going to happen,
Right.
So
Exactly.
they're at that point.
Exactly.
So I love that we're, kind of both in that sphere of like, let's
Yeah.
try and work on people before they get to that point.
Yes.
And here's one thing that I do struggle with, though, and I wonder if you can help me with this, is it's like trying to treat hypertension.
Mhm.
You don't feel it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel fine. Why do I need to take this medication? Like, I don't understand,
Mhm. Mhm.
So sometimes the pain isn't enough yet,
Yeah.
or they're so used to it,
Yeah.
or they're so resigned to it.
Yeah.
So what do
Yeah.
we do with that?
Yeah.
How do you
Well,
communicate to somebody that, hey, your life
yeah.
could be better?
That's a wonderful question, because honestly, like, we don't know what we don't know. I
Yeah.
think that's it's just the way it is. I think the thing that I look at is in my day to day, am I sharing so am I sharing things that are hopeful that people can look at and say, "Oh, maybe I could." Um I my podcast is Healthcare Hope, because it's, yes, healthcare is what it is, but there's hope. There's hope for something better, right? And unfortunately, when it comes to people who aren't experiencing like really bad symptoms, they don't need a big hope, right? They're like, well, I'm fine. It's fine, right? I think the challenge there is helping them realize that they don't have to wait until it gets bad.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I think humans just, it's kind of a tricky spot, because I think
Right.
humans just, we do really good at ignoring mild things.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a survival technique.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
because if we're jumping on every single little ache or pain, and we're seeking help every single time we feel a little bit stressed, that's going to take up a lot of time and energy that the brain doesn't want to spend on. So if it's not affecting our day to day, then the brain's like, then we don't need a solution, right? I think the beautiful thing is, the more people realize that, like, headaches aren't normal, the more people realize, like, being fatigued at 3 o'clock in the afternoon isn't required as an adult. Like, the more people start to talk about it, the more people will realize, oh, I don't have to live like this.
Yeah.
Shoulder pain isn't normal. Like, neck tension isn't normal. Like, but I think it's going to take a little bit of a reset for our society, because we're such in a, and I don't know, I feel like it's something like, and I don't know. It feels like we got to a point after the Industrial Revolution where output and production is more important than connection, wellness, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't speak to pre-industrial America, because I wasn't there. But whether it was true of pre-industrial or not, our society is very focused on outcomes, productivity,
ROI.
Yeah, return on investment, like, so focused on that it's going to take a bit of a shift. And I think we're seeing it, but it's going to take a shift to, what's my quality of life? Am I having a headache every single afternoon? And is that how I want to live? Do I eat ibuprofen like candy? And am I okay with that? Right? So But again, I think humans are so resilient that it's going to take that societal shift
Yeah.
To convince people who, just, yeah, I've got high blood pressure. Everybody has high blood pressure,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
But you don't have to live like that. Yeah, everybody's got anxiety. Well, sure, but not the people who have done the work to manage their stress and understand their stress hormones and realize that anxiety was actually related to thoughts and cortisol levels. And, I mean, like, but I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there. I had the most exciting, I don't know, it was a little thing, but it was really cool to me. I was at a business networking event just today, and a 40-something-year-old man stood up. He 100% not a health and wellness space person, like insurance person, right? Like very business, very standard American human. And he got up and said something about how he just felt calmer and better when his environment was clean and well cared for. And to me, that was really indicative of where we're headed. I believe we're headed to a place where 40-something-year-old men acknowledge that health and wellness is important.
Yeah.
He said, it's important to my mental health, and he used those words, that my living room is clean and my house is tidy. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a beautiful indication of where we're headed. Mm-hmm. Because if a 40-something-year-old insurance person can acknowledge that his mental health is important to him, mm-hmm. then I think we're headed in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So yeah. I have a lot of hope for where we're headed, because I think more and more people are going to start realizing it's not okay to have a headache every single day. It's not okay to have muscle tension. I don't need to have hip pain all the time. I could go have a massage therapist and chiropractor, and I could do some strength training, and I could not have hip pain every single day, mm-hmm. right? Like, I think we're going to get there. Mm-hmm. It's just taking that shift.
Yeah.
So keep talking about wellness, and we'll get there.
Yes. I like to say it may be common, but it's not normal.
Yes. I love that. I love that.
So there's a lot of things that are very common, like really bad PMS symptoms and stuff. I'm like, it's actually not normal.
It's not.
But we're told that it was normal and just deal with it. We're told that a lot as women.
Well, and I think as women, we're if you look on, TikTok and Instagram, anxiety is normal. And feeling exhausted at the end of the day is normal. And like not tired, but like exhausted, fatigued,
like you shouldn't drive.
And it's normal to be completely like frazzled to the point where you're hoping your kids will go to school tomorrow because you just can't deal, right? All of these things, they're very normal, but they're very common, but they're not normal. They're not necessary. Mm-hmm. You can rise above that. Mm-hmm. If you have good mental wellness, if you have good mental health, if you have a body that you're supporting in all the ways it needs, right? You don't have to experience that. Yep. You can be tired at the end of the day in a good way, right? Yeah. Where your head hits a pillow and you're like, I'm exhausted. I left it all on the table, right? I worked out hard. I played hard. I was there for my kids. I was there for myself, and I'm exhausted. And I still might wake up at 2:00 in the morning and not be able to sleep for an hour.
Thank you.
Is that common?
Yeah. And perimenopause it is.
Yeah. That's another one that I've been having fun with.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I think it just takes that shift of understanding, like, we have to care, especially as women, we have to care well for ourselves. Like, because if we can support ourselves, it's that whole, you put the oxygen on yourself first, and then you help the people around you.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be so much more effective. Mm-hmm. We're going to be so much more effective, and we're going to enjoy life better if we take excellent care of ourselves first. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. I'm going to throw your banner up.
Oh, yeah.
And there she is.
There I am. That's me.
So go check her out, aimforgreatnesscoaching.com. She's got a burnout quiz there. You can go through and find out, are you burnt out? Answer's probably yes.
Probably. But I tell you how to deal with it.
All right, guys. We are out of time for today, but I will definitely have Betty on again. Because,
Thank you so much.
Oh, it was awesome. We didn't even.
I know we didn't even go over the questions.
So
That's okay.
Yeah, we just riffed. So
I love it.
That's awesome.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Always,
Good
always a
times.
pleasure.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna have this over on Facebook, YouTube, and we'll also post this on Spotify.
Awesome.
So check it out. And I'll also put in some more show notes as far as, where to find her and her services. We refer back to each other all the time.
Yeah.
Like I'll have somebody who comes to me and they have some more work to do as far as like their mindset and things like that. And I will refer them to Betty.
And I do not do anything nutrition or health wise. So they have to go see Nicole for that.
Yeah. So we have our little resource team here. So we got you covered.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.